Good morning, everybody. Another lovely morning. Getting to the shortest day very quickly now. I've got 3 juicy questions for you for the Zoom meetings. So here's the first one. Clearly what happened with the disciples in Acts chapter 8, the way that they were scattered, the persecution came on, they were out of control. It would seem like everything had gone wrong, all the plans had come to nothing. But in it all, they found themselves in the perfect will of God. A bit like Moses floating down the river in his little basket, in his little ark, seemingly out of all control, finds himself in the perfect plan of God. Or like Joseph, sold into Egypt as a slave, seemingly everything's gone wrong, out of all control, finds himself in the perfect plan of God. Or Hannah, crying before the Lord because she's barren, seemingly everything's gone wrong, it's a hopeless predicament. She finds that part in her life brings about the perfect plan of God with Samuel. So the list goes on and on and on in the Bible. So very often when we feel like we're the most out of control, we find that we're the most in God's plan. So my first question is, have you ever been in a scenario like that in your life, where you are out of control, where you have no say in the outcome, and yet you find yourself in a scenario where you ultimately realize at some point you're in the perfect plan of God. God put you there. He actually planned a thing from way back for you to be there at that time. If you've ever had a situation like that in your life, share it with the group and encourage them. That's the first one. Okay, the second one is a little bit more difficult. Let's just throw the ball for Jessie first. She's followed the fly to the ball. Right. The Samaritans, despised Samaritans. Half pagan, half Jewish, got their own religious system going, got their own temple going. This thing had gone back to 700 BC. They were totally disliked. The Jewish people had no time for them. So I want to ask you a question. First of all, let me confess a few things to you. So we all struggle with certain people groups or cults or things. I've found that in the last 18 months I have lost patience talking to Mormons particularly and Jehovah's Witnesses. I've just lost patience. When they start the conversation by saying that we're just the same, we believe just the same thing, I can't help but say to them immediately, you know that's not the truth. Why are you even saying that that's the truth? You know that you see us as a cult, you see Christians as in error, and so on and so on. I launch into a scathing attack, and it's probably not right. When you look at the way that Jesus dealt with the woman at the well, typical example, the woman at the well, the way that he dealt with her, please read that in John 4 for yourself before looking at these things. He had time, and these people that are sort of half pagan and half, have the word of God, you've got to have time for them. I found myself getting a little bit impatient with certain people groups that claim to have the truth. There are others, I'll come to them in a bit. But so my question to you is this: Jesus said to the disciples, because they could not believe that he talked to this woman, and that they would have been astonished that he even wanted to go into Samaria. Have you written any people groups off? Have you written them off? Are there any people that you've written off and you just haven't got patience for them anymore? Listen to what Jesus said. Jesus actually had to say to the disciples, lift up your heads. The fields are white for the harvest. You've only got to look at the Apostle Paul on his 3 missionary journeys. His first port of call was always to the synagogues. Why? Because they were the people that were most searching for truth. So he would always go to the synagogues first, always. And yet, I think sometimes we end up writing off certain people groups like they did with the Samaritans, and we're not engaging anymore. But listen to the words of Jesus. The fields are white for harvest. There's never been a time like this for decades that we're in right now. So are there any people groups or religious cults or even denominations that you've just kind of lost patience with and you're not engaging with anymore in the pursuit of bringing them? As Jesus said, true worshippers will worship God not just in spirit but in truth. Have we given up, folks? Have we lost patience? If you have, I have with some. Let's just confess it. Let's get it out in the open, and let's get a missionary mindset back into the church. So that's the next question. Have you struggled with certain people groups, with certain religious denominations or even cults where you just haven't got time for them anymore? If you have, why, and how can you put that right? Okay. Right, so the last question, so these questions get incrementally harder to answer. The last question is concerning Simon the sorcerer. So Simon the sorcerer, very complex man, clearly has a massive ego. Clearly he didn't want a relationship with God. Clearly he only wanted this power so that he could be the one that they came to give out this power. Simon was all about Simon. End of story. Now then, church history tells us, I think it's Irenaeus, I hope I'm right, if it's not I'll put it up. It's Irenaeus that one or two of the church fathers said that Simon, if you like, brought about the beginning of Gnosticism. Now whether he did or not, the fact is Gnosticism was a massive problem to the early church. Huge. And some of the letters that you find in the New Testament are written to combat and deal with this kind of heresy that had come in. So the first part of the last question is, what is Gnosticism? What is Gnosticism? And then, how can we best deal with people that actually are following a Gnostic gospel? I'm not on about the gospel of Thomasy or things like that. I'm talking about Christians who, Paul writes in 2 Corinthians, there is already another Jesus being preached, another gospel being preached, and another spirit being preached. So, my question is, how do you deal with people that have a form of Christianity with quite a thick slice of Gnosticism built into it? How do we deal with them? What would Jesus do if he met somebody, a Christian that was, you know, full of enthusiasm, but really, like the woman at the well, was in error? How do we deal with them, friends? How do we deal with them the way that Christ would deal with them? That's the last question. Okay, folks, just to say, the following week we're going to be having a bit of a prayer time and a celebration and time of joy. We are going to be looking at some Old Testament prophecies concerning the birth of Christ, and we're just going to come together, maybe even worship together, be a bit of a Christmas special the week after. This coming Sunday, 10:30 in the morning, we've got a carol service, a special service. So if you can be there, but we will put it up anyway later on for those that aren't at the service, if you want to follow on. God bless you all. Have a lovely week. So those are the 3 questions. See you soon.